you got a nice quality like of the audio signal.
Yeah,
Like you
you
got
should
a
have.
yeah,
Yeah, you should have
you got a
seen how I
crisp.
started. Yeah, the so I used to just record straight to the computer. That audio
Yeah.
sounded like I was doing audio from Potato. It was awful.
Oh
And
well.
then I got my first mic. It was like
Okay.
$150 from China. Like it was just enough for me to
Yeah.
sound better. And then I was like, okay, let's invest in a better mic. And so
Yeah,
these
it sounds
mics are
awesome.
a crisp. Yeah.
Has like a crispy mids and like a nice and like nice low frequencies and stuff. Like my ears are trained to microphones a lot, and I can sense a good microphone directly.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, when you come down in person, I do have a second microphone here. So when we do this again in
Yeah, next
Australia,
time.
you can come and sit, and then we won't have to do it over Zoom. By the way, for anyone listening to this, you joined mid conversation. I'm with the fantastic artist Brandon. You'll see him on his socials as Brandon Sounds.
Yeah.
Fantastic DJ, producer, based out of Germany. I know you've got like American roots, but you've had some fantastic music come out recently. Most recently, Swagger Feet, featuring
Yeah.
one of my close friends, Bijou. But you've also had Floor Addiction, Tesla, and Night Heaters as well. So yeah, it's been a really
Yeah.
good 2024 for you, my friend.
Yeah, this year is hard. Some good songs coming out right now, but if you if I go back in time when I made these songs or when I started these songs, they were like some of those songs were started in 2022. It
Wow.
just took a long way to get them finished, to find this like right arrangement hack to get them going. So some of the songs, even though they are released right now, they weren't made in that time. So way back in time.
So why does it take so long? Because that is a long period of time to sit on music.
Honestly, like it's different. You have different phases when you're making music. You start a song, you have an idea, you get hooked immediately, and then you are like on fire and just like sketch out like a rough draft. And once you have the first version and you listen to it over and over and over again, then the first questions are coming like, is this cool? Like, do we need something else? Because you get tired of listening to your own songs. And then the worst thing is you play your music live, you test it out, and then it doesn't give you the response that you expected in the first place. The feelings that I had in the studio, if those feelings are not, you know, uh, transmitted to like to the clubs, then yeah, it's like a fallback in a way. And then sometimes it's good because like half a year later, when you go back to the project and you listen to your music with fresh ears, you find new sounds or new ways to get your initial idea to a full song. Sometimes you would say like, no, I just don't feel it. And sometimes like I got the song Night Heater with Kyogre, and this song started with a completely different drop. And the drop that everybody knows right now was just like the B part of the drop. So the drop started with a different synthesizer. And then after 8 bars, it switched into the drop that we have right now as like the first drop. And it was like the switch was always like the cool part of the song. Whenever I heard the switch, like the initial idea with the switch, I was like, yo, this part is sick. But the first part kind of sounds dated. And I always try to find the arrangement to get like this B part sounding good as like the impact of the drop. I couldn't find a way because it just didn't sound good. And then I had this like one idea to do like bam 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 bam, and then I'll heat this just for you, like an A-B section with the vocal, and that was it. And then this was like, yo, this works. And then we were so on fire to finish the song. So yeah, those are like the reasons.
Because
It's
it
like
sounds like you're almost a comedian doing a set. Like you're like, I came up with an idea and I won't know if it's good until I go out and I test it and then I go back and
yeah,
I have to rework it. Like, because I feel like that's uniquely in your space. to being able to go out and test a sound and being like, what's the reaction? And then coming back and being like, okay, let me rework that sound. Whereas I feel like most musicians don't do that as much where they're not testing live. They're just constantly working in the studio. And then once they're ready, that's when they'll go live. So it sounds like a completely different process.
It is in a way. Sometimes, even though the crowd reaction wouldn't be as expected, sometimes there are songs that I would still finish because I'm believing in it. And I'm like, if people just know the song, if people know the lyrics, if people get the vibe, then it will work out live. And and if the song is not released, you're always criticizing everything. You're hearing your own songs with different ears. Once the song is released, like all of these things are gone. It's like, fuck it, like it's good, you know? And then I remember my song Shades On. Shades On is one of my most successful songs. The first times I played it with this UK rap top line, like I stepped in the club, I got shades, and everybody was like confused, like what the hell? And then, but then I don't know, like the first videos on Instagram went live where people were like shuffling to the song, or people would make reels with their shades and stuff, and then people would pick up the top line, and then now it became one of my most like iconic records when people have like wearing the shades when they are in the crowd and stuff. So sometimes songs need time and space to grow. But also sometimes when you play your unreleased songs live, it would push you back in motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird because I definitely think with music, you never know because the crowd might not be your target market anyway. Because
Yeah,
it might
that
just
is,
reach the target market just because you
yeah,
released it and it'll find it organically. That's the weird part about music is you don't know
absolutely.
who's gonna love it.
And not every song is made for this environment, you know. For example, I'm a resident DJ at Bootshaus Club in Cologne. This club is crazy. It's, I think, number five club in the world. And
Wow.
people are like really enjoying the bass heavy songs, and the more like musical songs sometimes are not getting um this kind of feedback because the club is more bass focused, I would say. And but some records are not made to have this crazy impact. Some songs are made to be songs, right? And so you always need to be aware of where are you playing your songs, or what audience is listening to the song, because I think every record, as you said, will get its own audience for sure.
How does that influence how you create music? Because I imagine it's quite hard because you're thinking about, okay, where am I going to play it? What have I got coming up? How am I going to release it? Or is it just as much as I like it and I'm going to put it out and see what happens?
Tough question. I think, yeah, the music industry became so, um, how can I explain this? You never know like what's coming next, and trends and how fast this industry is moving, you can't foresee things, right? And sometimes this makes it even more complicated. The market is so saturated that sometimes I would make a song and then I would be like, but there are a bunch of other records that kind of sound similar, that go into this direction, and it's it's really difficult to just ignore everything that happens in the industry. Then you got those trends. When you look at in America, I feel like house music, maybe also drum and bass, and like, but also house music, tech house and stuff is super big. If you look at all those main stages, you have like all the acts that I would love to see live. Whereas in Germany, trends are super different, like super different markets. I talked to this with AC Slater, like really short on at Parookaville Festival, and he said like those markets are so different. And in Germany, like I would say like fast music, like hard kicks, hard style, hard dance, but also like techno, hard techno, or you say hyper techno here, which is just like techno kicks with commercial vocals. Those are like the styles that are demanded a lot, I would feel. And maybe also like nowadays Afro house too. but like the music I'm making is just more like house, cool like bassline grooves and stuff. And and this is like the biggest issue I'm having as a German artist right here. Is like the taste I'm having is kind of a niche here. Whereas in the US, this music is way bigger. And sometimes it's difficult to just like do your own thing and know that other music styles are way more popular, right? But at the end of the day, I'm making music because I'm super passionate about it. And I can't even do other styles because I can do the best music I can if I just do what I like. And sometimes, well, the specific sound I make, it always causes like bass faces in the studio. I'm like, oh yeah, this is tight, you know? And whenever I have this, I'm like, yo, I just put this out and I got a great community. I got some great labels that are supporting my music. So I can't complain, but still it's tough, you
Yeah.
know, because you always also see this on streamings, right? Like, I mean, the streamings is a whole different issue, a lot of politics and like big playlisting and stuff, but still you can see what kind of music is popular in which market, and that is a struggle if you are doing music that is not like the most trendy music.
Well, is it so bad though that your niche in Germany? Because part of me is like, music goes through phases, and there's always the catching up, and there's always alternations. But
Mm.
it's set like to have multiple markets that you can be successful in is ultimately what any artists want. Like I always feel, and when I have conversations, people are like, I don't particularly want to be stuck in my own country. There's like lots of
Mm.
limitations, and that's probably a big limitation of American artists is they feel that they don't have an overseas presence. They have a very local presence, and so it's hard for them to expand. Whereas at least
Yeah.
if you're getting international play, you know that you can do shows in multiple locations, and then it's only a matter of time before the local presence becomes bigger and bigger and feeds off it. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't think it's so
absolutely.
bad.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm super happy that I'm in a niche because that gave me years ago the potential to grow and to stick out. And on it, like on a lot of festivals, like you always need like acts that play also like danceable music, right? And not like hard kicks and everybody's going crazy. So there's always room for the sound, and it's always good because if you're like in the niche, if you do your own thing, then you're not replaceable so easily. And I can see like what you said, that everybody is just seeking like the overseas in a way. It's like the German or the European artists, they want to like cross over to the US or to Australia, to different markets, and the US they want to get more popular in Europe. So that's also an interesting thing to see.
It's also the same here. Like no
Oh
Australian
yeah,
artist wants to stay Australian. Everyone wants to go America.
oh yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's just that's that's the sexiest thing, That's the thing that you grow up and that's you see all the big artists. It depends what you grow up on, I think. I think you want to emulate the people you listen to and the people that inspire you. And so they start to see, especially here, that influence from the US is the biggest. So that's what they want to do. They want to be able to be that person who goes to the US and makes it big. They want to be able to have those, 100,000 people shows. That's like the
Yeah,
ultimate dream. Whereas here,
yeah,
we've got a population of like 25 million in Australia across the board. So it's
yeah.
not a huge population, whereas US is like 360 billion. So that's what they look at. And then, obviously Americans love Europe. And they're like,
Yeah,
yeah, I want to go to Europe.
absolutely. But I played my first Miami shows in March. So I was there doing Miami Music Week, and I got some like nice opportunities to play some like great shows. But most of them were like early slots because I was probably like the smallest artist on the lineup. but it was just like sick to play. But when I was there, I was like, yo, what I got in Germany is pretty awesome, you know? Like just playing like great crowds on great festivals, and you always have to appreciate that because it happens really fast that you're getting comfortable with what you have, and then you see something else and you're like, yo, this is really good what I have, you know. And to play the same like crowds and stages as I'm doing in Germany, which is absolutely fantastic, requires like big records and like big popularity, you know. And I know the hustle of so many artists in the US that are trying to play shows for crowds and stuff. And so you got to appreciate what you have. Like, even though I know like the US would be a dream one day to be there on a regular basis.
What was the difference between Miami and your home shows?
It is like just the feeling being in Miami and seeing, yo, like everything is bigger than what I know, you know, because you see different environments, you also see different culture from the people. And I feel the Americans, like the audience is more like versatile. You see more immigration, you see more like openness towards music. And I just have the feeling in the US, people are just having fun listening to new music, just being so open. And if something is nice, they just enjoy it. They not seem to be like super demanding if there's like on the shows that I have been like where if you don't play a vocal, nobody knows, that people would just like stand around like, oh no, I don't dance, you know? And on some like some shows I play in Germany where I just play my music, I feel sometimes people are just always waiting for like those breakdowns where they can sing along and just have a good time, which I'm always also doing. But I feel in the US there's much more patience when it comes to that. And also like that there is much more potential to grow, much more venues, much more cities, much more like cool places where the style I'm going for would have like a really nice exposure and maybe also like the right target group, you know?
That's so interesting around
Yeah.
the how different the people are in terms of how different the crowds
I
are.
mean, it depends. And when you play festival stages here in Germany and people that are following your music, when they come to the stages, it's awesome because they know your songs and they're like, yo, we love your tunes. But sometimes it's also like when I'm playing on a stage where all the acts around me are more big room, hardstyle, EDM-ish, then you are not reaching the extra amount of people that didn't know you before, you know? And this is sometimes the goal when you go to a festival, that you want to also reach new people that never heard about your name. And I just have the feeling in the US, if I get the chance one day to play in front of a bigger crowd, I could reach a lot of new people that might be interested in the stuff that I'm doing. So this is what I'm believing in my head.
Well, I think it's a matter of time before that
Yeah,
opportunity comes.
hopefully, but
Well,
you
I
never
mean,
know. You never know.
I mean, you're making clearly you're doing the right things in terms of it starts with an early show in Miami and then it evolves over time. Like you said, it happens quickly. Like you don't know how quickly it can happen, but then it just becomes your new normal. And then you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then what's next? That's the weird thing about musicians and artists in general is there's always this mindset of like, what's the next thing am I going to do? How can I continue to improve and how can
Yeah,
I challenge myself? Because honestly speaking, the amount of people that would trade places with you is insane. Like when you think about the songs that you're making, the experiences that you've had, the things that
yeah,
you're doing on a regular basis, there are DJs out there who will never get to experience something like that, or there are DJs who are starting their careers and they're like, "Hey, Brandon is someone that I look up to and want to emulate." That's the weird thing is like, obviously we're having this conversation because you're good at what you do. and you are talking as if like you're not even close to satisfied. And that's what I find ultimately so fascinating is you have a good following, you have people who like your music, and it's this drive. And this is the weird thing is, yeah, musicians, artists, never satisfied. It's always the how can I push myself?
Yeah,
How can I do the
it's
next
not the
thing?
exclusively.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
not you exclusively, but it's just the thing that you can't switch off around. I don't want to become complacent. I don't want to become all yesterday's news. I want to continue being relevant. I want to evolve, and I want to see how far I can push my own artistry and find it and discover new sounds and all those
Yeah.
things.
But I also have to say, I have moments where I really see what I have. And these moments when I'm playing good shows and I will see like I had a great show last week. I played in the forest. Um, I was at Open Beats Festival. It's like southern Germany and great festival, like big main. I played on the main stage last year, like early slot, and then after this, like last year, I went. They have like an area called Magical Forest. It's like a big stage between like the trees and beautiful self-made decoration and just crazy lightning and stuff. And people are
That
just like
sounds
running
awesome.
inside this. Yeah, I just posted some clips of that. And then I was just as a guest after my set, I was in this forest. I was like, yo, I need to play here next year. So I played this forest a couple of days ago, and it was exactly the vibe that I imagined to have. Just people being super into that kind of music because it was not like main commercial, was more undergroundish and more like danceable house and not like non-commercial, which is like great. And after that set, it was just a vibe for like 90 minutes and everyone in the crowd enjoyed it and you could see it in their faces. And also they were like always like screaming like, yeah, Bretton, what's up? I was just having a good time. And then after that, I was so happy and so relieved. And also playing Parookaville. Parookaville is probably one of the most important dance festivals in Germany. So whenever you talk about playing Parookaville to someone, it's like, oh, you play Parookaville, sick, bro, and stuff. And then I played the first slot on the first festival day, and then I was a little worried that when you are the first act and you obviously have to like get all the people to the stage, like how many people will show up, and the stage was packed. Like people just came and just having a good time, and those are the moments where you really see, okay, things are moving and people are knowing the songs and things are getting bigger. So you got those moments, but then after like 3 or 4 days of festival, you go home. It's like Monday, it's raining, and then you are in the studio. Like, what's happening? The contrast is so big. And then you open like your projects, and then you are still a little bit tired from the weekend. And then sometimes, you get into like the whole different mood. So it shifts really quick. Like on the one day, you're like, oh my God, like this is the best life ever. On the next day, it's like, I'm not having any ideas and my songs sound shit and everything is like lost. And that this is like probably the toughest thing about this whole music
Yeah.
job, you
It's the
know?
roller coaster. It's the like the high, and then you got to the low of
Yeah.
like now I've got to work. And yeah, it's weird when it's when you're by yourself. It's like when you go down and you wake up and you're like, okay, now back
Yeah.
to it. It's like
Yes,
the
yes,
breathing
yes.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
this is
feel the
also like
same.
this is like baked. Are you making music yourself?
No, but I feel the same after this interview. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like, this is the best part. Like this is my favorite part of the whole process is
Yeah.
talking to musicians. If you were like, Aaron, design your ideal way it works is I just rock up every single day and there are new people to talk to and I don't do editing and I don't do any of the actual like admin or any of the other work. I just do interviews. That would be my ideal. But then, after this, I'm gonna ride the high of like that was great or hopefully it was great. And then And
Yeah.
then afterwards, it's like, all right, now I got to go back and like edit and listen back to the conversation. How can I improve as like an interviewer, as a communicator, and then, getting it ready for a release. So it's the same of like, this is going to be the best part of the process. And then once it's released, it's like, okay, next one. And then trying to continually improve over time. So, but yeah, it is weird. I don't make my own music, but I talk to musicians all the time.
Yeah. No, but it's also baked in your process, so for
Yeah.
sure. And no, but this is normal. But just like to refer to your question, yeah, like artists, they got like a tunnel vision, and sometimes my friends they would be like you should see what you have, right? And and these moments they are not as they're not happening so many times as like the moments where like what's next, you know?
Yeah.
And this is the maybe but this is the exciting thing of the industry. Things can move really quick, things can move really slow, and it's not something that is like foreseeable. And that makes it whole like super interesting.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that you look happy when you talk about it.
Yeah.
Like you
Yes,
don't
yes.
you don't look like you're annoyed by it. I'm sure there are things that annoy you about it, but like genuinely throughout this whole conversation, you've been smiling and you're like, as you think about it, and I can see it as you're thinking, you're like thinking of all the things that make you happy about it. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I don't want to like talk about the negative things too much, but it's just part of the whole hustle. And and but honestly, like those moments, especially in the studio when you got something and you like this is good, this has potential. There's probably not anything that is more fulfilling than this feeling, you
how do
know.
you know it has potential?
It's the first initial ideas that make me hook, and also when you listen to your songs maybe the next day or some days later, then and it's still sounding good. Those are the moments where like, yo, I got something. And if you post it or if you play it out and then you get positive response, then you know, okay, like I got something here. And knowing that you created something from scratch or from like out of the nowhere is so cool. And also being able to like print your ideas into the program or into like your DAW, whatever. Um, and you know, like you're getting faster at it, not like years before where like one song took forever. This is also something that is really fulfilling. Like knowing like you got your sounds and you got your workflow, and also when I'm working on my songs and people are sitting next to me, they're like, "Yo, bro, you're like so fast! Wow!" Like these are like just like the short moments where you realize, okay, I'm improving.
Yeah.
You know,
Can
that's
I
cool.
ask you, because I interview a lot of hip hop artists, surprise,
Yeah,
surprise, hip hop hustle podcast. But I interview a lot of hip hop artists, and
yeah.
when they collaborate with other artists, there's always a bit of like competition. Like there's always
Oh,
this kind of, I want to have the best verse because they're writing, and it's always like pen
mm,
against pen, flow against flow. And, even as a hip hop fan, when you listen to music, the natural
mm.
standard is to say who won the song, like who had the better verse. And so fans
Oh,
continue to
wow.
perpetuate. Yeah, it's like it's competition. It's like very competitive. It's always like, I never want to,
I never thought about this that way, but it makes totally sense.
yeah.
You
And
saying that, yeah.
so it's like, and so and then if it's your album or your song, you don't want to lose to the featuring artist because you don't want to look worse on your own song. So there's always this bit of give and take. And so you'll see that in a lot of music and the dynamics. And then, I was about to ask you, it doesn't seem like that's the dynamic in your genre of music because
Um,
like, yeah,
mm.
it just, Yeah, how is that dynamic when you're working with someone they're like and you're trying to collaborate because it's not like
So
you're writing a verse necessarily.
no, it's not like that, but I still feel when you collaborate that if both producers are like known about if both producers have technical skills and they have a vision, they would sometimes both of them be a little bit too fast. You know what I mean? So let's say I'm the guy sitting next to the collaborator and he is doing some things and I would give him like feedback. Sometimes I feel I would be a little bit too over enthusiastic, you know, be like, you should guys should do this and do that and throw this plugin on that chain and stuff. You know, where I'm asking myself, just chill, just make him just let him do his stuff. And then you can say, put this plugin or try this effect or you know, and when I'm working and a producer that is really skilled sits next to me, he will be the same. He'll be like, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta throw this on the chain. And like, yo, bro, chill. I'm about to do it. You know, because then maybe this is just something automatic because you're not sitting on your computer and then you got some visions and you want to do some things. So it's not like a competition, but you want to like it's also not like presenting your skills. It's more you want to speed up the process, you know, and that sometimes can cause to like weird situations that I'm asking myself. I was a little bit too over in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
but also there's I'm just thinking if there could be a situation where it's more like competitive. Not really. Sessions are more that maybe the one producer or when you're working together with a singer or songwriter, that one is more like the leading figure in the session, but not in a competitive way. Just like somebody has the vision, I want it that way. Are you cool with it? You know?
yeah.
So it's quite different than like the hip hop thing. If you have like two crazy sound designers that are both on analog synths and be like, yo, who's got the better sounds? Maybe in that way, but that also sounds weird, and I cannot imagine that this happens because the good thing is with if both are like electronic producers, the one is sitting doing the drums, the other one is working on the grooves or is working on the synths or on some pads or some harmonics. So there's always some things where you can split work. And if hip hop artists are in the studio and they're both doing the exact same thing, is like spitting rhymes and finding like cool flows and stuff, maybe that is the reason why it gets competitive.
Yeah. Well, that 100% is. It's because I think fundamentally the music comes out differently. Like
Yeah.
you're like at the end of the day, when you have hip hop, it's very clear whose rhymes are when and who's speaking when. So you're very much
Yeah.
representing yourself. Whereas like, when you're doing the drums or you're doing the synths and you're layering the skills of two artists, it's like, okay, it's a cohesive piece in the sense of like
Yeah.
it's layered, and so it can't be as competitive because it's like at the end of the day, we're coming together to release one cohesive piece of work, as opposed to like, hey, there's two parts to it completely different, and they could stand alone. So, yeah,
Yes, but thinking of which, like first of all, vocals are in most cases the most present, the most memorable thing in the song. Um, so it's easy that this gets compatible. But also just thinking that some artists they have like I have a collab with an artist called Martin Horger. The song is called Let's Try It. It's also like one of my biggest records. It has just I think over 10 million streams right now. And he has, or in that time, or still now, he uses like like a saw synthesizer, like a like an uprising detuned synth that is that became really popular with his songs back in those days. And he used that on the first drop where everybody would be like, yo, this is modern horror when they hear the sound. So I said it wasn't in a competitive way, but I was like, we need a second drop that maybe represents my style as well, you know. And then you just like find ways where you can incorporate both styles, you know. Because if you're collaborating and one has a really distinctive style, which you would recognize immediately, I always think it's cool to kind of find a good balance, but not in a competitive way, just in a more musical
Yeah.
way, if that
Well,
makes
I
sense.
would be exactly the same as you, which is like, okay, everyone knows you're on this song now. We got to make sure that people also know that I did
Yeah.
something on this song.
Yeah,
It's not just
exactly.
yours.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but then we found a good way. Like I structured the second drop and it was like hitting so hard. And then it was like, yo, this is cool. And also these concerts are also in that specific scene. Not the songs to random people on the street. They would probably not know that this synthesizer is from that guy, right?
Yeah.
So you
Well,
also
I
have
think you're
to,
100% right that
yeah,
unless you're very familiar, you won't know. But
yes, yeah,
it's the same in any genre. Like
yeah,
it's the same in hip hop. Like you can, if you hear a beat, you're like, I know who produced that. Like I just can hear
yeah,
it and I know who's doing it. So it makes sense. You've
yeah,
mentioned drops a couple of times.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what is it about a drop? Like I love a drop. Everyone loves a drop. But what is it about a drop that gets everyone going? Like there's just something about it. It's almost, yeah. What do you think it is that like literally gets everyone excited about it?
I think drops they live from contrasts. A drop is has a different energy level compared to everything that happens before. And if also you find something that gets you hooked before, like right before the drop, then the drop itself works even better. But the drop, you mean like what is important to me when I'm making drops?
Yeah, yeah. Or why do you think it has such an impact? And I think contrast is the piece it like, and the build up of like you can sense something coming. It's almost like a scary movie.
It's just
But
like
like,
the in the drop you release basically all the energy that you want to like build up. It's like the climax of a story that begins in the intro and works itself up. And there are genres or songs they don't have like drop. Like the drop is maybe the introduction of a new element. And then there are songs where you have silence for like 10 seconds and then you got like a hard kick drum hitting, you know. So this is the beauty of electronic music, that it can be both. A drop can be a whole song or a drop can be a 30-second section. And for me, I always feel like if if the drop is something that kind of adds up to what happens before, but just in a more energetic way, like this is something that I really love. And since also my drops are really dry, really bass heavy, I think it's super cool to incorporate more something like melodic before, finding some harmony, some catchy vocals. And it's basically the element that gets the people dancing the most. And as I said, in Germany, from my experience, it's a really drop focused crowd. So sometimes you can have um, the most generic kind of drop structure, just a crazy kick, then a bass line that just doesn't even move, but like, everything is just like on the kick, like you have like boom, boom, boom. But if there's a big contrast and just smacking hard, people go crazy in the crowd, even though the song itself doesn't have anything musically, you know, musical itself. And it's crazy to see. And then you got those guys that are being hyped super much right now, keine Musik, doing this like really melodic Afro kind of vocal based house where you got a completely different energy, but you got an energy, even though it's like 20 BPM slower. And this is just the amazing part of the journey of a set, right? So you can't always say like you need drops if the whole context of your set doesn't require big drops and you still have the same energy, then this is as great as having big contrast in your set. I hope it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it does make sense because, you know, listening to music, and I always find this across genres anyway, is the build to the climax of the song is the fun part. Is like you're building, and you don't know what it'll be, or you're waiting
Yes.
for it to come, and then it lands, and then it pulls away again, and then and sometimes I think the artistry is in knowing how much to drop and when to drop, and then
Yes.
how to give and take, so that you're always leaving people going, that was amazing, I want more. Whereas like sometimes there are songs I listen to and I'm like, they overdid it with the drop. They did it, they found it, but then that's all they did for the rest of the song. And I'm like, you lost the effect that you managed to get at the beginning because you weren't able to pull away and figure out a way to get the same effect multiple times throughout the song.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, when I hear music like that, those are the things that get me. I'm like, I cannot wait for the drop again, and that's exactly what you want.
And I find it super interesting in nowadays music if it's not too expected, like when like drops when they have a creative way to be introduced, you know. So even like sometimes it's like you got a nice vocal groove, and then there's just like some kick drums that repeat in a very fast way, and then it drops immediately, you know. And sometimes I like I like song arrangements where it's not the expected way. Not they got like a 8 bar snare roll going up and then everybody knows what's happening. Sometimes there are some cool ways with vocals that you can make it really interesting. And for example, like there's this one song from Mau P, "Give Me That Bounce." I don't know if you heard that song, and it has like a crazy like a loop of the synthesizer that opens up and gets slower and slower and slower and slower, and then it drops, and it's like crazy because it's a super different style of building up to something. And as an artist, I'm always trying to find ways where it's not as super expected from the elements that I use. And sometimes when I'm getting demos from people that send me their music, it's the first thing I hear. It's like it's so basic how they sometimes structure the elements where you can hear, okay, this is like the first or their second song. Where I did the same exact thing. It's like, oh, I gotta use this sample in that section so people know something is coming. But I think music changed a lot the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think we like surprises.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
because I've also seen like sets where like, you know, and they're doing it live and they're building up to a drop and then they do a fake out, and it's like they don't do a drop, they go into like a completely random song and then they hold like a fake out for a few seconds and you're
Yes.
like, oh, and then they drop, and there's something about the like the disappointment followed by I get what I want finally, which is also really fun and interesting. So I don't know. I think there's no limitations on what you can do, and I think that's the fun part, as you said, is like you get to find your interesting ways and those unique ways that stand out, and honestly, that make your job fun. Like imagine not being able to do all those things. That would suck if you had to stick
absolutely.
to predefined structures. It would be like none of this is creative at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And as an artist, you always look for new things, new ways to make your songs. And And maybe people that are not making music, they wouldn't even pay attention to these little things. But I think as an artist that is making music on a daily basis, that is something that you hear directly. But also, funny thing that you're talking about silence and like delays, like delayed drops. That is exactly what I'm did with a lot of like third drops of my songs. If you listen to drops like I have a song called Clock Ticker, which was also one of my most successful songs,
Yeah.
where the song,
Wasn't that one of the ones that like really blew up?
yeah, yeah, it was like a TikTok viral thing, and it was crazy. Never expected that. And also Ravers Bounce, the last drop, it's like a big delay and like some weird stuff that is happening before the drop, and these are the moments, especially live, where you can get the attention, because people are like, oh, something is happening not the expected way. That's cool.
It's the same thing in speaking. Like when people ask me about talking, and my professional career outside of this has been in sales. So, and when I've been teaching people sales and teaching people how to communicate with others, the use of silence is critical in just capturing attention and capturing tension. And it's
Yeah.
so weird because what we're always taught is sound. So it's what you say, whereas it's actually sometimes, and more importantly, how you say it and where you leave the gaps and where you stop and where you finish, rather than necessarily just the words that come out of your mouth. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's like when you speak, I'm like, oh, it's so similar to just the technique of still keeping someone engaged with when you're talking, and the use of silence. Because if we were to talk and it was the same tonality and it was the same the whole way through, it would be like, this is so boring. Like it would just be so boring for everyone to listen to. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be fun. So yeah, I think silence is underrated across the board.
Yeah, I can tell you are a really, really experienced speaker. Like the way you speak sounds really skilled.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I do
Yeah.
speak a lot and I spend a lot of time talking. But
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I started like in sales, and I would literally practice on my ex-girlfriend. Like I would be like, oh, I need to work on lowering my tone and being able to like lower my voice, speak softer and more clearly. And then I would go home and I would just talk to her and just be like, and just lower purposefully, and just to practice so that I had the vocal range. And it's weird, you become very good. And the reason I would do it was because they said that when you speak slower and your voice is deeper, it's more convincing. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
able to like go, even for little things of like, hey, where do you want to go for dinner? I would change my tone, speak slower, softer, and then she'd be like, yeah, let's go there. And I was like, oh, this is really weird how the voice and if you can control it works.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting because I'm having like a vlog series on my YouTube channel. It's called Shades on Tour, like Shades on Tour, like just a little pun on the word. And whenever I see myself talking to the camera and I'm talking super hectic, nervous, and so loud and uncontrolled, I always feel so uncomfortable watching this. Whereas seeing myself talking in a more calm way, more relaxed, and even when I'm on stage, sometimes I would pick up the mic and just try to say something to the crowd, and maybe say I got new songs, or maybe be like, "Yo, put your hands up in the air," or something like that. And whenever I see this on camera, and it would be a little bit like too hectic, I always feel a little bit weird seeing that after the event. And I would be like, yo, when I would be in a crowd, I would be like, yo, this is super awkward how the DJ sounds. And I'm always trying when I'm picking up the microphone on stage, saying something to the crowd, I always try to be as normal as I can in that situation and as calm as I can, which was pretty cool to see in my most recent like live set, live recording. And then I was like, yo, this sounds pretty cool, you know, because I'm speaking just normal to the people and not as over enthusiastic, you know what I mean?
Well, you also have a good voice. So like you have a nice speaking voice. So you should
Oh
be
yeah,
able to
thanks.
do that without worrying in terms of, but I 100% agree. You speak to someone and as
Yeah,
soon as they rush, you're like, oh, why are you rushing? You seem
yeah,
nervous and you seem worried and you seem
yeah,
like you don't believe the things that you're telling me. And so that's the thing. All you have to do is slow down, say less, and all of a sudden, everything you say holds more weight. All of a sudden, it sounds better. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, yeah, you're making some really good points. And
yeah.
that's it.
There's this there's this one DJ called you know this DJ AC Slater. Have you heard
Yeah.
about him?
Yeah.
Legend. And I saw a lot of his live sets, like even I think on SoundCloud or YouTube. And whenever he picks up the microphone, I'm like, whoa, wow, this is so good. The guy is so good and just like speaking in front of the crowd. He's just like so relaxed, being like, yo, Los Angeles, how you doing? And I'm like, yo, this is so cool. And he was doing the same thing at Parookaville Festival. Like, luckily, I was able to see his performance because he's rarely in Germany, and he was playing a stage at the festival that I played too. And then when he picked up the phone, I was like to my guys, like, yo, listen to him. He has the best microphone voice. And even Bijou, also when Bijou speaks in the mic, I think it sounds so cool
Yeah.
because maybe they are just having the talent to speak in front of big crowds.
Well, I think it comes with just confidence and self belief. I think
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
and to be honest, when I have met Bijou and when because he took me to my first NFL show ever. When I
Oh
was in
wow,
America.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Never in my life did I think that, doing something like this would lead to literally me being in America, meeting an artist, and then us going to the NFL. But he's so laid back and he's so down to earth. And so I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, no wonder people vibe with that. And so that's all he has to do is just be laid back and down to earth. And I think that helps when he picks up the microphone, is that he can just continue to be laid back and down to earth, and people naturally gravitate towards that.
absolutely. I had a session with them in November. So I was in LA, and then we worked on Swagger Feed, and it was just such a vibe. Like we both had the same kind of relaxation in that session and the same confidence about the song that we're working on. And this is also something what I'm saying about the American industry when I'm in LA, whenever I'm in LA and I have family in Los Angeles, I can feel like this energy in the city where people are just seeking to do something, like to build their careers and to collaborate and just to hustle. And for some reasons, I don't have the same feelings when I'm here in Cologne. Maybe because I live here and I'm seeing the city like every day. But when I'm in the States and LA, I just have this different kind of energy where people are just trying to, you know, to create. And I had the same feeling being in his environment, I've just felt so comfortable among all like those big artists.
Do you know what I think it is? I think, when I've traveled to Europe and when I've traveled to the US, I think there is a cultural difference in the sense of being in Germany, being in Europe is enjoying the little things. Like life is about slowing down and enjoying just the simplicity of it in a way.
Yeah.
Like even when you go to places like Rome and I look at the people and I'm just like, oh, you're just enjoying being alive in the sense of
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why there's no hustle is because, and it's different. It's like, I don't hustle because I'm not interested in all of that. I'm just like, the things I'm working towards is simplicity around like, hey, I wake up and I love my morning coffee
Mm,
and I love coming home and spending time with my family. And that's enough. That's my paradise. And there's something beautiful in the simplicity of that. And then on the flip side, I think the US culture is like grind, 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 hustle, be successful. All that's it's different. And there's beauty in that as well. But I think there is a distinct difference between the two in terms of simplicity of life and the complications of life, and both
absolutely,
being important.
absolutely. It really depends where you're coming from and what your goal is, basically. And you can't compare it to like people like in the Mediterranean area where they're just having their coffee and just relaxing, just enjoying their lives. And I think people who would be in Los Angeles maybe and working or living there permanently, and maybe without having this like this vision of being an artist and trying to to create and hustle and stuff, it could be a really stressful city. I lived there for 3 months. I was an intern at a management agency like 5 years ago, and like I really got to know the city in a way where that it's really stressful. And but if you but it really depends if your motivation is like I want to grow, I want to make it as an artist. And I met a lot of like also hip hop producers in that time. They said like, yo, we moved from New York to Los Angeles because we want to like build our careers here, because if you make it here, then you can make it anywhere. This is something you can feel in that city. And if you're there in that city for that specific reason, then it's absolutely fantastic. But if you are in Rome and you just want to relax and just enjoy the simple things of life, this just a different thing. Like it just maybe it's also maybe a matter of age
Yeah.
and
Well,
family situation.
I think LA gets to you at some point. I think there is, like, when I speak to people who live in LA or move to LA, they're like, I think there is always a period of time where like, you're like, I want to make it. I want to make it. I want to make it. Why haven't I made it? Why haven't I made it? Why
Yeah,
haven't I
yeah,
made it? Now I'm
absolutely.
annoyed that I haven't made it and everyone else wants to make it. And so I think that's the weird thing about a city like LA, is because the energy of the city is everyone wants to make it. That's like the ultimate. There's like this energy, and as you said, that you feel that, but I think it grinds you down if you don't achieve your goals. Like I think it
Yes.
really
Mm,
hurts you as a person, and it hurts your like soul, because you're like, I see people making it. Why aren't I making it? And the reality here is just, not everyone is destined to become a musician or destined to become an actor. That's kind of life. You got to find your thing that makes sense for you. But yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's hard in those cities when that's the culture. Whereas, yeah, I think in Europe, it's a little bit easier to be like, I want to make it. Okay, I haven't made it, but I can still enjoy my life and not feel like a failure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe it's just also the tease when I'm there, like in that short time. It's like, oh, this is so cool, but also the downsides that come along with it. It's also something that you seriously have to consider. And how is it in Australia?
Uh,
Is there something like you can tell from the culture?
it depends on the communities. Different communities have it, but Aussies are pretty laid back. We're
Yeah,
pretty, we're like, Aussies like the finer things and like to enjoy life. Like you speak to most Australians, we're pretty chilled as like a culture. And that's probably the thing we find the most amusing about Americans, is how
good.
intense they are about everything. And it's like, hey man, just relax, like chill out, enjoy it. But I'm from Melbourne. So the thing that like because we're one of our major cities. So there's definitely the hustle culture within Melbourne, but it's it's less to do with like being famous and more around like business and like more around like, you know, and Sydney has that, but they've, you know, the influencer is everywhere these days. But most people, if they want to be famous, they want to go to America. That's just the transition. But yeah, Aussies love a good meal, good coffee, go out and live your life a bit. I think
I want to travel to Australia once. I was never
I
there.
think you'll sell out
One day, maybe. In
one
the
day.
future.
Yeah,
One day.
that'd be great. Then I can come see you live. That would be amazing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I had some disconnection with my headphones. Now I'm
That's
hearing you
okay.
again.
Well, yeah, you should come. I think you'll sell out, and you know, then I could see you live. We can do this in
Yeah.
person. But yeah, Aussies love it. People are selling shows in Australia, across the board. Like Australians know very much that if you come and you're not successful here, you'll never come back. So there's a very much a belief around like, hey, we want to make it worthwhile for you, and we want to like repay the faith that you've had in us to come and do a show.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even got messages from Australian people listening to my music, been asking like, "Yo, you got a community here. We are playing your music. We're listening to your music, but still, like to make it there requires even bigger songs and more, like more business opportunities also for promoters there. But I'm confident this will happen anytime in the future if things are moving in the right direction as they are moving right now.
Yeah, then you can do Southeast Asia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
You can do a whole tour around, and then
Yeah.
maybe you want to avoid your winter. So when it's winter for you, it'll be summer for us. So
Oh,
you can
okay.
plan it out
Ah.
perfectly. Yeah.
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 Let's see in a couple of years.
Well,
Yeah.
Ben, it's been fantastic talking to you. I only have one more question. It's the only question that I plan on the show, and it's probably the hardest question I ask on the show.
Go ahead.
If you had to recommend one album that everyone should listen to at least once to appreciate, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
Damn, that's a tough one because I'm not the biggest album listener. Oh, let me think. It's tough.
See, people get to
Honestly,
experience the silence now. That silence that we were speaking about earlier, that created tension. I love it.
um, I think the last the last album I really listened to from like the first to the last song, I think it was the one from Charmy, the album called Year 2020 in the pandemic.
Okay, wow.
I was listening to this album like on the way to work every single day, and as I think just the way it builds up and the diversity of songs is absolutely fantastic. Like I love this album, but I have to be fair. I'm not the biggest like album listener. Maybe I can just, if you just give me one
Yeah.
second, I just look at my Spotify just to see if I got something saved that I totally forgot right now.
Yeah. Or you can also just be like, hey, this is who else I listen to, but there's no real rules. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, some people are really quick with that question. Some people know immediately. Like it's crazy.
So look, there's so when it comes to an album, there's I would say the Charmy album Year 2020 just had an awesome vibe, and also the Chris Lorenzo album called, I think it was Late Checkout. Also, was it Late Checkout? Let me should see. Yeah, late checkout in 2019. Maybe it's like the albums of artists that I really, really like. When they publish an album, I'm so interested to see how they implement their skills in the whole album. So, but apart from that, like I'm not listening to a lot of like music outside my genre, to be fair. People always would say I never listen to that kind of music that I'm making or that I'm DJing. I would always listen to like hip hop or to like rock music. I'm the complete opposite. I'm so into the music that I'm making. I love to listen, even though if it's like live sets that somebody records on YouTube and uploads on their phone, and then they would record on the phone, upload it to YouTube. I would be in the gym listening to those like crappy recordings, just like to have like that bass impact. Would be like, oh, this is so sick. And because I love getting inspired by other DJs and other like productions that I hear. And so I can't even say like I would recommend you this album, but there is a Spotify playlist that I can absolutely recommend. Um, it's my own. No, just joking. It's by the artist called Fabian Mazur, and the playlist, also Fabian, and the surname is Mazur. The playlist is called Loud, and this playlist it is full of so experimental and so interesting future-proofed records. It is just awesome to listen to because each record is so wisely picked and curated for his own playlist. It has something so unique, and it's always fire to listen to. Whenever he updates his playlist, and I would listen to the first 5 songs, I'm like, yo, like I should quit music because this shit is so good.
Well, please don't quit music because you
Yeah.
are making great music. Brandon, I appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for inviting me.
I,
It was
my
awesome.
my pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed. It was great talking to you.
Yes.
Great understanding, what makes you tick and what you think about when you make music. Obviously, for everyone who hasn't listened to it, or if you have, listen to it again. Swagger, Swagger Feet came out with Bijou most recently. Floor Addiction, Tesla. They also came out this year. Night Heaters as well. Go through the catalog, man. It's awesome. I had a great time. Is there anything else you wanted to shout out? Anything else you wanted to plug or point people in the direction of?
Yeah, like everyone listening, just like subscribe to this podcast. It's awesome being here, and
Thank you.
also like, um, also watch out for your next episodes. I will definitely listen to your upcoming guests, and also we'll go back to the Bijou session. I'm just curious if I heard it, and also,
Let me see what episode it was.
yeah.
So that was your song that started playing. Once. It was episode 158.
Like maybe I saved it.
So for anyone else who hasn't listened to that episode, they can go back and listen to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe like I got 3 songs coming out this year, so like my 2024 release catalog gets bigger. So watch out for the next songs for sure.
Sure. And hey, man, would love to do this again. As I said, you're doing some great things. You're making some great music, and it's exciting to see people like yourself who are invested and excited about the possibility of music and the possibility of what they can create. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure.